Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I'll be providing for you an online presentation on the topic of green buildings or code of BQS554, Building Services 2. Now, for this purpose, I'll be using a slide that has been published online by our friends at UiTM Shah Alam. This slide has been prepared for the code of MEC 600, Engineers in Society. Okay, so this is an assignment that they have to do for the topic of green buildings. The lecturer is Engineer Dr. Bulan Abdullah and prepared by Part 7 students as listed on the slide. Okay. So what is green buildings? They are a building or structure that are environmentally friendly and resource efficient throughout its whole life cycle. So when we talk about life cycle, we are actually talking about the process of the entire process of acquiring a building. So that starts from the uh, siting, design, the construction stage, operational stage, maintenance stage, renovation, and demolition. And it will continue with that cycle, okay, of again siting and design and reconstruction. So this cycle is known as the life cycle, okay, or the whole life cycle of a building. Okay, so these green buildings are also known as green construction. Although when we talk about green construction, we are limiting the green aspect of it only in the construction process, whereas the green aspect should cover the entire whole life cycle. Or sustainable building, this is more towards the operational or maintenance of the building, okay? Whereas again, it should cover the entire whole life cycle. So the best term, I guess, would be green building. Okay. So the objective of green buildings, reducing the total effect of the built environment on human health and natural environment. Okay. So as we all know, any developed areas, especially the towns, the cities, mega cities, it consumes a lot of resources from the environment, especially in terms of energy, materials, um, water, things like that. So, compared to the suburbs, the city would require tremendous amount of these resources due to the activities being done in the city area and the number of population in those areas. So to ensure that these built areas would um, try to sustain itself as much as possible, so it needs to be run in a manner that consider about sustainability. Okay, so one way of doing that is on the building itself, that is making the building more sustainable by the use of green buildings. So the green buildings are able to efficiently use, okay, the resources, energy, water, and other resources. It and can also protect the occupant's health while using that building, improve the occupant's productivity, okay, due to the special characteristics of the building, and also reduce the waste, pollution, and environment degradation due to the activities that is being done inside those buildings. Okay, so how these green buildings are being rated? Okay, So in the US, they use this LEED, the leadership in energy and environmental design. So this is a rating developed by the US Green Building Council. So this rating is being used in America. Buildings accumulate points by meeting certain criteria and goals. The points will be tallied to determine the lead rating of the building. So, depending on the score or points that you get, you will receive either a full certification or silver, gold, or platinum certification. Okay, so depending on the points that you get. Criteria and goals of lead rating system. So there are certain requirements to achieve this certification. Projects must earn points in these categories. Innovation, okay, introduction of novel features and procedures of the building, whether it is during the design, the construction, and whatnot. Indoor environmental quality, the use of natural light and efficient air conditioning. So the building needs to use as much as natural resources as possible to avoid using too much energy in providing artificial indoor environment. So if the building is able to take advantage of the natural lighting to uh, lighten up the interior rooms of the building, that will be an extra for the points. And well, maybe modern building these days don't rely as much as in natural ventilation as much as the old days. But even when they are using artificial ventilation, mechanical ventilation, they must be using a system that is as efficient as possible. Next, materials and resources, responsible construction, waste management, and sustainable sourcing of materials. So this is especially during the construction where the project managers may have to really manage the waste that's being produced, minimize it as much as possible, and also sustainable sourcing of materials, meaning that we are trying to use or reuse materials in the construction of our project as much as possible. Location and transportation, land protection, and access to public transportation and green vehicles. So this is in terms of the connection to the building itself. They must protect the land areas and use as much as public transportation as possible, and use as much as possible in terms of green vehicles. Sustainable sites, sufficient green open space, light pollution reduction. So preparation of green areas to promote open space, open green space, and also reducing as much as possible unnecessary lightings to reduce the light pollution. Energy and atmosphere, optimizing sustainable energy production and metering. So the building must take advantage of the sustainable energy technology that we have these days. That includes the use of solar, wind, and things like that. Besides using the conventional power supply method. Okay. Next is water efficiency, indoor and outdoor water reduction. The building needs to use as less as possible water from the lines, and try to use water from other sources such as rainwater. Okay. So in Malaysia, we also have some sort of what they call it, rating system. Uh, so we don't really adopt the American type. We have our own. known as the GBI index, Green Building Index, GBI rating system. So this is developed by the Tubuhan Architect Malaysia (PAM) and with the Association of Consulting Engineers Malaysia. So it is a comprehensive rating system for evaluating the environment design and performance of nation building, especially in terms of being sustainable. So this rating system also have its points from the lowest to the highest. Okay, the lowest being certified, meaning they have the basic certification of GBI. So 66 to 75 point, you get the silver rating, higher gold rating, and the highest is the platinum rating. So next is the criteria and goals of GBI rating system. So the building will be awarded based on 6 key criteria. Number 1 is energy efficiency of the building. Number 2, indoor environmental quality. Number 3, sustainable site planning and management. This is especially during the construction stage. Number 4, material and resources. How much of reusable materials that they use back into the project. Number 5, water efficiency in daily operation of the building. And number 6, innovations in improving the sustainability of the building. So some of the examples of green buildings at the international level, we have the ever famous Taipei 101. They have platinum rating. King Street Station, Seattle. Okay, they also have platinum. Okay. Manitoba Hydro Place, Manitoba, Canada, platinum. The Crystal East London, also platinum. All these are very huge and very highly rated green buildings. Okay, public library. We have stadium. Okay, house gas station. Even a gas station. Okay, Toyota Elephant Passage. Okay. In the local scene, we have bangunan Suruhanjaya Tenaga. They have a platinum GBI rating. First Avenue, gold. Another PJH, gold. SD Mall, silver. Unimas, gold. Sarawak Energy, silver. DG Technology, gold. Hotel Pernagas, gold. Okay. All right, next. What are the benefits of green buildings? So there are tremendous benefits in developing green buildings. First of all, of course, the reduce on the environmental effect. So green building would have a smaller or slightly reduced effect on the environment compared to conventional buildings. So if we have a city that is full of these green buildings, obviously that city will not impact the environment as much as cities with conventional buildings. Enhance occupants' comfort, safety, and health. So just because we develop things the sustainable way doesn't mean that we are taking things out of the development. As a matter of fact, we are increasing the value of the development, and it can help increasing the occupants' comfort, safety, and health. And with the improved indoor environment being sustainable and all, it can improve the occupants' productivity with all these green open spaces and whatnot. So people can be very comfortable inside these green buildings, and this will improve their productivity. Other benefits are in terms of saving in the use of resources, especially water and energy. The daily operations of the building would require a reduced amount of conventional energy that is being tapped straight from the grid, and also conventional water supply that is coming from the pipelines, because the green buildings also have other sources of energy and water supply that can reduce its dependency on the conventional energy and water system. And all this will result in the reduction of operating costs. Okay, so maybe and in the long term, the energy bills, the water bills of the building can be reduced. Obviously, this is not something that we can um, take back in a couple of years. This will take a number of years, but in the long term, these green buildings will provide a good return on investment to the owners. Okay, so what are the challenges of green buildings? So just because there's a lot of benefits on developing green building doesn't mean that everyone would want to adopt it as soon as possible. Obviously, there will be some challenges. The first challenge is obviously the high initial costs. This is because the idea of developing green building has to be taken into consideration during the initial stage. During the inception, this has to be taken into consideration. Obviously, you would need professionals to uh, get the building aspects into the development. You will need to acquire the sustainability consultant and whatnot. So this will increase in terms of the cost of developing the buildings. That does not include the use or trying to acquire the sustainable system, especially like solar, um, rainwater harvest system, recycled materials. Those kind of things would cost quite a lot of money compared to the conventional system. Number two is time consuming. The those kind of technologies is relatively new, and it will take quite some time for the parties involved to get used to that kind of system. So this can be quite time consuming, and for the owners that needs their building to be completed as much as possible. Uh, Sometimes building green is not much of a option for them. Number three is material availability. So how much of this green material are available for the construction, depending on the area that the building is located. So usually, if it's located in the big cities, they would have a good access to acquire all these kind of sustainable material and systems. Okay, and the fourth is in terms of the labor, we need people with skill, especially to design the sustainability aspect into those buildings. We need people to work with the sustainable material of the building. We need specialists to install those systems to the buildings. So obviously, this is a specialist type of work, and this will obviously would take a lot of the cost would be high, and would need a lot of time to gather all these kind of specialists. So next, the elements of green buildings. Okay, so there are 5 elements of green buildings listed here. Obviously, energy efficiency. The building must be using energy that we tap from the grid. but also it needs to be using energy that is being acquired through sustainable means, such as the use of solar, wind, and such. Next is water efficiency. So the building needs to be able to use water in a safe manner, meaning uh, there would be less wastage of water, and it is also able to acquire water from other type of sources. Indoor environmental quality enhancement. So they need to improve in terms of the indoor environment, especially with the use of green technology and green materials to improve the comfort and productivity of people who are inside those buildings. Next is waste management. So the waste of green building, even though it can be reduced in a green way, in a sustainable way. And of course, the design efficiency, the design of the building also is important to ensure that the building does not need to use as much as the resources as conventional buildings, especially in terms of lighting, wind, water, things like that. So from there, we can get a lot of reduction in the dependency of electricity from the grid as well as water from the main pipelines. Okay, so next we move on to the design efficiency. In terms of design efficiency, sustainable design is a responsible, forward thinking method for building the best structure possible in the most efficient way. So, in terms of the design efficiency aspect, the things that need to be considered includes the windows, ventilation, walls, and roof. These elements will greatly affect the efficiency of a particular building. So, in terms of windows, it must have a smart design and innovation of window. It can provide lighting, cooling, and heating for comfortable building environment. So the window must be designed in a way for it to execute those tasks. Appropriate side and solar orientation can provide useful natural light and heat flow for building, and also can optimize the energy use. So this is something that has not been taken into consideration a lot, meaning that using the right size of a window and then placing it at the right spot for that particular building. So we can see that in massively produced buildings, the location of the windows are all the same, whereas the geographical position of the building is not. So for a particular green building, the size and location and the orientation of the windows and doors are very crucial, so that we can optimize the use of energy, especially in Malaysia in terms of cooling the building itself. So larger windows have more potential to lose or gain heat than smaller windows. South-facing window let through more heat and light than the north-facing windows. This is the orientation of the window. So if the windows are facing the we call rising sun, okay, so it will allow for a lot of lighting to come inside the areas of the buildings in the morning, okay, compared to the afternoon. The same goes for the windows that is oriented to the west, especially in Malaysia, we are talking about east and west. Okay, so the west facing windows would get more sunlight during the afternoon compared to the morning. Okay, so this is something that needs to be considered. Awnings and overhang can be installed with window design to allow sunlight in winter and shade in summer. So this is especially true for overseas buildings. But this also still applies in buildings in Malaysia where awnings, overhangs can stop the sunlight from directly impacting the windows, which can generate a lot of heat. So by having these features, can reduce the temperature of inside the building through sunlight radiation. Next is on ventilation. So for sustainable building to provide efficient energy use, good ventilation design should be take part. So for especially large sustainable buildings, they have to really consider the use of natural ventilation. So good design will take advantage of natural outside fresh airflow to provide comfort environment in the buildings. This is because natural ventilation, fresh airflow that occurs naturally, they are free. Okay, and then they don't require any resources. So it's not only free there, but it's also environmentally friendly. Okay, so the architect needs to design the building to take maximum advantage of this natural airflow. So otherwise, the building surrounding also should be considered since the risk of smoke and dust enter the building via ventilation. In terms of the natural airflow, the architect not only need to consider the design of the building but also the building's surrounding environment. Next, in terms of walls, for a building's wall material use important since heat transfer can be optimized by suitable material selection. Yeah, we can control the rate of heat transfer that is impacting the wall. So the use of thermal mass and insulation for the walls will reduce the amount of energy used to provide comfortable environment, meaning that if we prepare the wall in such a manner that it will reduce the thermal absorption, we can reduce the amount of energy needed to counter this, or if we can control the thermal mass of the wall, we can also reduce the energy needed to reduce the uh, heat that is present at the wall. So the building walls constructed by waste materials such as bottle or construct the wall with plants should be implemented by designers since both of these would be able to give benefits to the people in the building. So by using these new novel technologies, we are able to reduce the thermal impact of sun to the wall. Next is in terms of roof. In sustainable building, the roof will be one of the aspects need to take care since there's plenty of free space. So usually on the roof, they will put a solar panel to provide green energy into building, in other ways saving electricity costs and also store energy for any emergencies use. So for a green building, it must reduce its need towards the conventional energy from the grid. It must be also able to generate its own electricity. Well, not all of it, but a certain percentage of it. Okay. So the designer also can implement the rainwater harvest system. Okay, on the roof. Also, since the element will able to minimize the water capacity. So same with solar by having a um, rainwater harvest system, we are able to reduce the building's dependency towards water that comes in from the main pipes. Okay, so we can use this rainwater harvest system to let's say non-consumption use like watering the gardens, washing the cars, things like that. So this is an example of a good sustainable building. So it has consideration for the sunlight, solar water heating, ground source heating, grey water system, recycling bins, green transport, and natural ventilation. So list of design aspect for sustainable building. So there are a lot of it. Okay, building life cycle. So the structure is expected to last 250 years. The skin expected to last 50 years. The technology 25 years. Net zero water, meaning that it has rainwater collection. Okay, grey water treatment and waste compost. Net zero energy. We have mechanical heat exchange. Okay. Natural ventilation and 100% renewable on-site grid energy. In terms of occupant, program occupancy. Okay, so we differentiate between private and public areas. Internal cap and trade. So everybody has a certain limit of energy that they can use in a month, let's say, and then resistible stairs. So the use of stairs rather than to promote the use of stairs rather than elevators. Okay, so these are some of the plan of net zero energy buildings. So we have baseline building, heating, cooling aspect, lighting aspect in terms of tenants, and solar roof and facade. So it seems that there are potential ethical conflicts in doing these green buildings. The do's and the don'ts. So the do, engineers should be implementing design that will enhance working environment. Okay. Engineer must study the concept of an efficient energy management. And engineer should always find new design that can give benefits to the company or to the client. Don'ts. Engineers should not be implementing design that require routine maintenance. Okay, so the technology must not require too much maintenance. The engineer should not apply design that is highly in cost to construct. So the technology must be somewhat affordable for the client. Okay, so with that, we have completed the first part of the lecture. Inshallah, we will continue with the second part in the next session. So with that, thank you very much for listening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.